There's an old saying that it's not about getting to your destination, but it's the journey that counts. And when you're keyframing, maybe getting from A to B is the initial objective, but how you get there can make the difference between a so-so program and an amazing program. So let's go ahead and put in a couple of keyframes, moving this clip from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, and we're going to take a look at how you can modify its path to give it a nice smooth transition from A to B, and maybe even throw a little bit of acceleration and deceleration into it. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to select this clip. I'm going to make sure that my playhead is positioned all the way at the beginning of the clip. I'm going to make sure that it's selected so I can see its motion path inside the effects control panel. And I'm going to make it smaller to start with because I want to fly it through the scene. I'm going to type in 50%. So now it's about half size. And when the scene starts, I want this clip to be off screen. So I'm going to position it exactly where I want it to be. I can do that by simply double clicking on it and moving it where I want it to start, or I could have just gone over here and worked with one of my position sliders. So that's my starting point, and I want to add a keyframe for that. So I'm going to click on the position toggle animation. Now, if I wanted this to scale up, perhaps, I would probably have put in a keyframe for scale. But since I know that I want to keep it the same size, I'm not going to worry about it. But it is important to remember that whatever parameters you think you're going to change throughout the life of this clip, whether it's 2 seconds or 2 minutes, always make sure you put in that initial keyframe to lock it into place. Now I have the first keyframe. I'm going to move my playhead to the point in time where I want the clip to be off screen to the right. So I'm going to move it right to the end of the clip. If you don't quite see it, step back just 1 frame by hitting the left arrow key, because Premiere will snap to the first frame of the next clip, or in this case, the empty space. So I can see my box. I really want it to travel along the same horizontal path. So instead of grabbing it, I'm going to actually go to my position slider, and I'm going to simply slide it across so that it goes off screen. You can see I've created a second keyframe, and if I go ahead and hit play, it moves across the screen. That's the simple part. How can we modify this to give it a little bit of, say, jazz appeal? Well, the first thing I might want to do is, right in the middle, is maybe have it dip down. So I'm going to position my playhead at the point where perhaps I want it to drop lower in my frame. Once I have my playhead positioned, all I need to do is adjust the clip's position within the frame. And again, I can do that with the position slider, or I could simply grab it and move it where I want it to be. Now, as you noticed, when I move it up and down, I'm getting a nice little curve. So if I go ahead and I play that, I have a nice bend there. But I can control this curve even more. As you see, I can easily move this point in its position, or if I wanted to change the timing, I could go over here and move this left or right. Now you'll notice if I move it all the way to the left, that the dots between the first position and the second position are spaced further apart than the dots between the second and the third keyframe. So if I go ahead and play that, you'll notice that there's a speed difference between keyframes 1, 2, and 3. So the further the dots are apart, the faster your clip is going to move between keyframes. Now I'm going to undo that. I'm going to hit Command Z because I do like the timing to be smooth, but I want to modify perhaps the curve. And there's a nice little feature here. If I right-click on any of my keyframes, I have options to modify the temporal interpolation as well as the spatial interpolation. So let's go ahead and switch from Auto Bezier on spatial, spatial being the physical location or the way it moves versus temporal, which is time, from Auto Bezier to just Bezier. And now I actually have little handles that I can grab so I can change the way my curve goes. I can change these either within the program monitor, or if I go over here to position and open up the disclosure triangle, I can actually see these elements here, and it's a little hard to see, but I could actually play with the curves down here. The other option is maybe I don't even want a curve at all. In this case, I'm going to go over here and switch from Bezier to linear. And now the clip will actually take that turn as almost a right angle from point A to point C. I don't want it to go at the exact same speed. Naturally, when you kind of like float something in, you kind of slow down when you get there. So I don't want to just run right into this keyframe. I want to ease into it. So again, I can right-click on the keyframe, bring up my temporal interpolation, and I'm going to choose ease in, because what I want to do is I want to ease into that keyframe. So I'm going to select that, and you'll notice that the keyframe's shape actually changes. So depending on how you've modified a keyframe, it might be a diamond, it might be an hourglass, it might even be a circle. So you have a visual reinforcement that you've modified the interpolation of a keyframe. Let's go back and see how it looks when I play it. And as you notice, it comes and it lands nice and gradually. Now I'm going to just quickly hop over to that clip that we worked on earlier with going from black and white to color and the camera shake. And I just want to show you that it's not just a situation where you're moving a clip that you can apply any kind of interpolation. Anytime I have a keyframe, and I'm going to scroll down here, I can right-click on it and I can choose different types of interpolation between one keyframe and the next keyframe. So if it goes from black and white to color, not quite at the speed that you want, you can go ahead and have it ease in from, say, black and white, and as it gets to color, it'll be a little bit more gradual and a little nicer. Using keyframe interpolation can take what would be just a simple move and turn it into something that's more like art.